Hi there, welcome to Success Leap. Today we are going to get a brief introduction of 3D and we'll get to know how to make fascinating stuff using Adobe Illustrator's 3D features. Before we get started with the video, make sure to like the video and subscribe the channel so I can keep creating useful content for you. So let's get started. So we've opened up Adobe Illustrator and we are going to look into the symbols. To access symbols, you'll have to go into Window, left click on Symbols, or you can use Shift Ctrl F11 to access it. Left click. Now you may notice there are some previously existing symbols. You may use them as they are, or you can create your own symbols. To use a pre-existing symbol, go ahead and select, but if you left click, there won't be anything happening on screen. For using symbols, you have to go into Spray Tool and use them as you like. A single click will give you one icon. Clicking and holding left click and dragging them will give you multiple copies of the symbol. You may use the other features of Spray Tool, for example, Shifter Tool, Scruncher Tool, Sizer Tool, as you like. Go ahead and experiment with them. Now let's see how you can make your own symbols. For that, let's go into Shape Tool, left click hold and select Ellipse. You can do that from the L key on your keyboard. Make a circle. I'm going to press V key, select these and I'm going to press delete. Let's select our circle, change its color to something like red. Okay, place it in the middle. We're going to left click, drag and press Alt key for a duplicate. You can also press Shift to make the copy in a straight path. We're going to select them and we're going to access the Pathfinder tool. You can access it from the Properties panel, or you can go into the window and left click on the Pathfinder. You may also use Shift Ctrl F9 on your keyboard. We're going to left click and a panel will open with the Pathfinder properties. Now let's go ahead and left click on minus front and we have a beautiful shape of a moon. We are going to place the Pathfinder tool by left clicking and dragging on the right side so it doesn't bother us. Select the recent moon you've created, left click and drag into the symbol panel and a pop-up will open. Go ahead and name this symbol of yours something like moon. Keep the default settings and press OK. Now we've got a symbol of our own. We can go ahead and delete this shape. Now when this symbol is selected, you can go into the Spray Tool, left click for a symbol. If you want multiple copies, go ahead and spray it all you want. Now let's go ahead and make a square. For that, we'll select Rectangle tool by pressing M on the keyboard. Now let's make a square. Press Shift key so we get a perfect square. Now let's change its color to something bluish like this. Okay. To access the appearance panel, you can go into the window and left click on the appearance. We'll left click and select it. Now while the subject is selected, we'll go into add new effect, 3D and materials, and here you can see there is 3D glossing. Now when we go into 3D glossing, there will be three options: extrude and bevel, revolve and rotate. For now, we'll use extrude and bevel. Here we can notice we have a 3D shape and also a panel has popped up. Let's drag it a bit left. Now we can see a cube that is representing our 3D object right now. The light blue area is the area facing the front. Now if we left click and drag, the object will behave accordingly. You can also change its positions from the degrees over here. Now from extrude and bevel area, you can increase or decrease the extrude depth. Let's select extrude depth, left click, and by up and down arrow keys you can increase or decrease the values. Let's press the up key and you can see the extrude depth is increasing. Let's set it to 245. Now when we access more options, left click, you can see there are some more options accessible to us. If you want to add another light source, right now we have one light source. If you want to add more or multiple light sources, you can press the plus icon right over here saying the new light. We'll left click and add a new light. Here we have a new light. We can left click and drag to place this light as we like. We can place it at the bottom, at the top, however we like it. Now let's make something from this 3D feature. Now I'm going to make a bottle of a deodorant. For that, I'm going to press N key on the keyboard for rectangle tool. Going to left click and drag while holding shift for a perfect square. Also, let's middle line it. Going to press A key for direct selection tool. Now let's select the two upper points and by the help of corner pins, left drag and make them round. Now let's select the bottom ones and also give them a bit roundness. Now we have our cap ready. Now let's make the rest of the body of our deodorant. We'll press the N key again, left click and drag to get something like this. You can also make it wider if you like. Place it in the middle. Now again we are going to make the corners a bit rounder. Go ahead and select the direct selection tool by pressing A key on the keyboard. With the help of corner pins, we're going to adjust the roundness a bit, something like this. Now let's press V key and select both of them, middle align them, and using the pathfinder tool, let's unite them. Now by uniting them, we have a singular shape. You can see the cap and the body are now one shape. Now moving forward with our design, keep this in mind that the 3D effect we are now going to apply does not work on the complete shapes. You'll have to give it half of the shape you want to make a full 3D of. So for that, we are going to go into the line tool, going to make a straight line right in the middle, left click drag and also press the shift key. Now press V and select them both, and in the pathfinder go ahead and left click on divide. Now when we select it, it's a group, but when we press Ctrl Shift and G on the keyboard, let's do it again, Ctrl Shift G to make sure there are no groups, we have two separate shapes. Now let's go ahead and delete the left one. Now let's select it and access our appearance panel. To apply our classic 3D effect, we'll press Shift F6 for appearance panel, and while the object is selected, we'll go into add new effect, 3D and materials, 3D classic, and we'll select revolve classic this time. Now we have our basic 3D shape right here, but there are a tons of things you can do with it. For example, going into the map art, we can see that we have different surfaces of our 3D model right here. For example, in the red it's showing the bottom part. The areas in the darker gray are the areas we can see over here and are representing the non-visible areas of the 3D object. Keep going forward. We can see that there are different parts of our 3D object, and using map art we can place different designs on our 3D object. This is where the symbols come in. Now let's create some symbols and place them on our 3D object. For that, I'll left click on cancel and press OK. Now I'm going to keep the cap simple. For that, I'm going to press the N key for rectangle tool. I'm going to create a solid, something like this. Now caps are usually of grayish color or something like that. So let's give it a grayish color, like this. Now the area other than the cap, we are going to cover it up with a design and also a color like this gray solid right here. So for that, let's create another rectangle, or better, go ahead and delete it, press V, select this one left click, drag. Also press Alt and Shift key at the same time to get a copy. Now let's give it a dark blue color and press OK. Now for the main design part, left click, Alt, Shift and drag for a new copy. Let's make it a bit bigger. To get more area, let's select our 3D model and place it a bit on the right. And let's make our main design a bit bigger. Now you can place any design on this, but I'm going to import my channel's logo. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the best time. So I've imported my channel's logo, it's in vector form. I'll press Shift and Alt simultaneously and left click to make it smaller, and I'm going to place it in the middle. Let's make it a bit more smaller. I would also recommend you to keep the size of your design which you're going to place on the 3D object, keeping in mind the area of your 3D object. If it's wider than the object we've created right now, you can keep the design bigger. But if it's something like this, then I would recommend you to keep your design a bit smaller. Now we have 3 covers ready. We'll use these 3 to cover this whole object. Now we already know how to convert these into symbols. For that, we're going to access our symbol panel. You can simply go into Window and left click on the symbols. Now we'll select our first cover, left click, drag and release the left click. We'll name this symbol as cap. Okay. Let's drag in our second cover. We'll name it as alt body. Okay. And now let's drag in our main design, left click and drag and make a symbol. And let's name it cover. Left click OK. Now we can go ahead and delete these 3. Let's place our 3D object in the middle. Either you can press Shift F6 for the appearance panel, or go ahead and left click on the symbol. Now in the appearance panel, left click on 3D revolve, and here we have our panel again. Now before we adjust anything else, left click on the map art. Now the first surface is probably something hidden in between the cap and the body or at the bottom. We'll confirm it momentarily. Let's go on to the second surface. Now this is probably the top area of the cap. For this, we're going to go into symbol and left click on the cap. Now let's move on to the next surface. Here we can see the bottom part is highlighted. For this, we are going to use the alternative cover. Left click on alternate body. Now, as I've previously mentioned, the dark area is the one not visible to us, and the white area is the one that is visible to us. So, irrespective of that, we are going to cover the whole area. Left click and drag to cover it, and here we can see it's all covered up. Let's move on to the next surface. Here we are going to place our main design which we've created. Let's go into the symbol and left click on the cover. Now we're going to left click on a corner point and also hold Shift Alt and drag to cover the whole area. Going to do the same again. Now you may place it as you'd like, making sure the area is covered. Let's move forward towards our next surface. Again, we are going to use the alternative body. Go into the symbols, alternate body, and let's cover up the whole area. Let's go towards the next surface. Again, we are going to use our alternative body. Whole area is covered. Good. Let's move to the next surface. Now here we can see the cap area has started. So let's use the gray portion. Left click on the cap. Cover up the whole area. Let's move on to the next surface. Again, we are going to use the cap body. Cover up the whole surface. Now let's move on to the next surface. and let's again use the cap. So this has confirmed that the first surface, let's select next. The first surface is the bottom area, the very bottom of our bottle. So let's select our alternative body and press OK. Now let's press OK for a moment, alt click and use the scroll wheel to zoom in, and you can see these lines over here which aren't looking very professional right now. So let's go back into our 3D revolve, map art, and let's select these two options, shade artwork and invisible geometry, and we can see the lines are gone. Let's press OK and our cool looking 3D shape is ready. But there is more. You can go into the more option panel and here you can see different lighting options. For example, as I previously mentioned, you can add in a new light source. Let's drag it on the left and let's drag the right one a bit on right. Now we are going to adjust the ambient light. This light is acting as a light of, let's say, a room. For example, the room I'm sitting in right now. The light coming towards me right now is acting as ambient light. So let's go ahead and decrease it. To get a realistic look. Let's go for something like 22. Now you can see the top part has gotten a bit darker. No worries, let's go ahead and drag it a bit on the top. You can also go ahead and add a new light, place it on the top, and let's adjust the light intensity. Something like this. Let's go for 30. You can also place a light on the back side of your object. Let's create a new light, and here you can see a symbol which says move selected light to the back of the object. Go ahead and left click, and now the light has moved to the back side of the object. Now you can see there are somewhat of lines on the surface. For this, you can go ahead in the blend shapes and increase the value as you like. I'll set it up to something like 50 and press OK. Now we have our shape ready. We can place it as we like. We can rotate it. We can do many things with it. Let's select it and go into the 3D revolve again. And using this position panel, you can change its positions. For example, you can go ahead and rotate it. You can use the cube directly. There we go. Hope you liked today's video. Go ahead and experiment with whatever you've learned today in this video, and do comment down below with what you've created. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe so you can timely get the notifications of the new videos. We'll meet you in the next video. Take care.